morning, everyone. I am Richard. I'm a qualified primary school teacher, but I'm also an academic and a lecturer at the University of Dundee. I'm not one of those boring academics, but then, of course, every academic would say that, wouldn't they? So perhaps you can judge by the end of this presentation. You might be able to tell from my accent, I'm not originally from Scotland or Dundee. I grew up in the northwest of England, in Preston, and I've also lived and taught in the northeast of England, in Newcastle and Sunderland, and I moved up here to the northeast of England about 8 years ago. And Dundee's a great little city. If you've never been, you've not had an opportunity to visit, I'd encourage you to do that. And in fact, some of you might even consider relocating at some point in your careers. And I would say consider Scotland. It's got a beautiful countryside, it's got some really nice, friendly people, it's got interesting places to visit. It pays well. Check out the teacher salaries for Scotland. And interestingly, there's no Ofsted, so that might be something that might attract a few people as well. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit today about Grassroots CPD, and BrewEd's a good example of that. And I want to briefly mention first this idea of terminology. And academics do love to define a term, but I'm not overly bothered in this situation about what we're calling this idea of Grassroots CPD. I mean, it could be informal learning, it could be do-it-yourself CPD, it could be self-directed learning, or to give it its technical term, pedagogy. But I don't want to get bogged down in that. So we're just going to think about the impact that it might have on you, and then how you can impact on your learners and the students you're working with as well. Now, if you think about your own experience of CPD, they might be similar to mine, but that all changed about 10 years ago when I attended a Teach Meet. And Teach Meets in some ways were the sort of precursor to the BrewEd movement that we've got today. I was teaching, and I'd had a long day at work, and on my way home I stopped off for this event that I'd heard about, and it was in Gateshead. And there was a room had been booked, a sort of conference suite had been booked by somebody. They managed to get it for free. The event didn't cost anything. There was some free food laid on, which is always a bonus at the end of a busy day. There was a really engaging presentation from a speaker. And then we had an interactive sort of activity planning session where we looked at the national curriculum in some detail. And I'd never done this before in my time on teacher training or during CPD as a teacher. And it shifted the way I saw the opportunities for CPD. And alongside that, at the same time, I'd had a CPD session in school. The sort of thing on a sort of Tuesday evening at the end of the day, the staff meeting CPD session, it was every week. And the session was delivered by a local authority literacy consultant. And it was aimed at upper stages, so upper primary school stages, for reluctant or struggling readers, and the way in which we could use picture books, perhaps to open up discussion and talking to lead into reading. Now, it wasn't a bad session. The trouble was, it was exactly the same session that I'd sat through as an NQT several years before. And that left me feeling a little bit disappointed, almost as if I'd wasted my time. Now, contrasting that with a Teach Meet, when I came out feeling engaged and empowered and energized, then it started me thinking about, is there a different way for us to approach CPD? Now, BrewEd is one approach to this, Teach Meets are another, but there's a few others out there that you might want to investigate. So one of the ones that's available in Scotland is something called Pedagogue. You might have come across this, you'll find it on social media, on Twitter, and there's other movements on Twitter like EdChat, and you might engage with these discussion groups and look at the websites as well, and follow up with events relating to that too. Another example comes from America, and this is the EdCamp movement. The EdCamp movement is based around unconferences, and an unconference is something where someone arranges a venue, but they don't plan the timetable for the day. And you just turn up in the morning, and if you want to present, you just put your name down on a big board, a big planning board, and then people sign up for the various sessions. And if no one comes, the session doesn't run. And a really interesting thing about the EdCamp approach is that they have this rule of 2 feet. The rule of 2 feet states that if you're not getting anything out of the session, you get up and you just walk out. Now, I think that's really interesting because the attendees are empowered to make that decision as to whether they think there's any value to it or not. And because it's a fairly sort of low stakes environment, people don't mind, and that's fine. And I do wonder sometimes that if we had that rule in academia and university, maybe during my own teacher education or perhaps the lectures I give, what would happen if students just got up and walked out? It would be one hell of a motivator to deliver some decent quality sessions and make sure that learning really mattered. Now, what can we do about that? That's a little bit about what Grassroots CPD might be. What can we do about this? Well, you can plan your own events. If you've got engaged today, you're presenting, whether you're just sharing the ideas with each other, later on, why not go away and think about what you might do? You could organise your own professional learning community, develop your own professional learning network. You could possibly just organise an online meetup, maybe using a platform or software like Zoom. But when you do, reach out and ask for help, ask for guidance. This community, this online community that supports all these grassroots events and movements, they are phenomenally supportive and they want everybody to do better and to help each other. That's what teachers do. They're naturally inclined to help. Now, the other thing you can do is you can try and draw on ideas from formal research into professional development. And what the research there suggests is that when it's really effective, there's a rhythm of delivery. So within school, a minimum of a couple of terms. So you can apply that to yourself. You want to give yourself time to reflect. You want to return to some of the ideas that you've possibly taken away from any particular events that you've engaged with. And then just as importantly as that is there needs to be a focus on the outcomes for the learners and the young people that you're supporting. So from today, see what you can take away from it and think about what you will do as a result of what you've learned today. So I had a quick check over the programme to see what was coming up later on. We've got Alex Fairl on this afternoon, and she's talking about diversity in the curriculum. And I saw Alex talk at BrewEd in Newcastle, BrewEd 2, and it really, really changed the way I saw teaching social studies and history and humanities and the issues around diversity and in particular gender. And I went back and I applied that to the undergraduate teaching I do with primary education students. Now, also later today, we've got Mark Anderson, who's talking about low stakes testing. That's something that I've been interested in for quite a long time, and I've been looking at the research behind it. So I'm going to pay close attention to what Mark has to say to see how I might apply that with the teaching that I do with master's level learners at the university. Now, I'm coming to the end of what I want to say today, but I want to make a plea now to any school leaders who are out there, any managers, any head teachers or managers from school settings. I'd like you to consider this. If one of your staff comes to you and says that they're going to a BrewEd at a weekend or they're doing some other similar grassroots CPD, think about how you can encourage that amongst the rest of your staff. You could maybe offer them some time off so that they can then go and plan some CPD to deliver to the rest of the staff about what they've learned from the session that they've been attending on the weekend. Now, underpinning all this idea of grassroots CPD and the people that engage with it is this idea of agency and empowerment. And empowerment, I think, is always a bit of a paradox. Is it possible to empower somebody else? I'm not so sure. But what you can certainly do is you can create and foster the conditions to encourage and let this approach to learning flourish. So try and enjoy today, make the most of it, and try and keep this momentum going. If later on you ever hear somebody in a staff room or perhaps even somebody who's not a teacher criticising and saying, what's the point of a BrewEd? What's the point of engaging with something in your spare time at the weekend? Try and challenge that. Do it in a respectful, constructive manner, but try and explain what the benefit and the value from attending this actually was. If you want to research this in more detail or you want to talk to me a little bit about grassroots CPD in general, please do get in touch. You'll find me on Twitter, you'll find me on the University of Dundee website. I'd love to work with you and hear from you. In fact, if you want to come and visit Dundee, get in touch as well and I'll show you around.